Benefactor underwriting for this broadcast has been provided by a grant from Republic Bank. The power of red is back. Major underwriting support for this broadcast has been provided by grants from New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, Perfect Building Maintenance, Customers Bank, Collins Building Services, Marks Paneth. Additional underwriting support has been provided by grants from AmTrust Title, Bank of America, Capital One Bank, Douglaston Development Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handro Properties LLC, Handler Real Estate Organization, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, John Catsimatidis Red Apple Group, New Banks, Meridian Capital Group, Ocean First Bank, RPW Group, TD Bank, the One Stop Property Group, and these friends.
Ooh, you little apple over here. Are you shiny or dull? You're very shiny when it comes to the area of Westchester. Lots of things are happening in Westchester. But I'm not a maven on everything, so instead of me, I asked for the help of my friend Andrew to bring together a group of 3 individuals to talk about developments taking place in Westchester. My guests include, we have 2 Trinity College people, so the younger Trinity College graduate, okay, Stuart MacKenzie, who is the vice president at CBRE. Hailing from Shaker Heights in Ohio, the steel capital of the world, Jonathan Gertman, who's been here before, who is the vice president of development for NRP Group. And last but not least, Andrew Weisz, who happens to be my executive producer today and executive vice president at the RPW Group. So how many years has RPW been involved with Westchester?
Over 30 years. And we came off a period in the 60s and 70s of what we now call overdevelopment of office product. And since that time, up until I would say the early 2000s, Westchester saw virtually no new development. And in the last 10 to 15 years, with folks like Jonathan and Stuart involved in a lot of the transactions, we've seen an incredible amount of, compared to essentially none, an incredible amount of multifamily development. We've seen all the major hospitals come into the county. We've seen entities like Regeneron expand tremendously, and a diversification of uses. Wegmans is now in the county, and adaptive reuse is sprinkled throughout the county. So it's been a pretty fascinating sort of last decade, and there's quite a bit coming in the pipeline as well.
So how do you and your family decide to to expand from basically the office business to the residential market?
We've owned a lot of product in the county for a long time. What is the future? And we feel that the future is really diversification of uses and turning what are more suburban 9-to-5 complexes into 24/7 communities. So we partnered with Jonathan and the NRP Group, and we're building 303 units in White Plains, in a more suburban part of White Plains, although you are close to, you're a 10-minute ride from downtown and you have Wegmans.
With regard to that, are you going to have a bus to take people downtown?
Yep. So the office complex had a shuttle to the train, and it really works very well because folks that get off the train and come to the site get dropped off, and then that same bus can pick up those folks and take them to the train, can take them to Wegmans, Lifetime Fitness, downtown White Plains. Our buildings are typically larger in size, north of 300,000 to 400,000 square feet. So we offer, at this site in particular, we offer a daycare center, we offer full fitness center with instructors, we have a cafeteria, a sundry shop. So we expect that some of the residential tenants will benefit from those.
So here's a question that anyone can answer, but I want you to answer it, and I want thoughts over here. With the change of working from home today, What effect do you see that with regard to your office space? The reduction, you may not need as much space. People are working a different transition.
So, I mean, we've seen from the very beginning of the pandemic, occupancy in the suburbs was much higher than New York City. And I attribute that primarily to driving to work versus taking mass transit. People feel more comfortable in their own car. And there's more space. So we're now, I would say on average, about 65 to 70% occupied.
In the office?
In the office buildings in the suburbs. Our building in Midtown is still below 50%. So, we've come back quicker. And I would say on average, we've had some tenants that have downsized, but we've also had many tenants that have done very well through COVID that are expanding. So net, I think, we're sort of fairly stable pre-COVID. And I think, Westchester longer term has, we've seen a tremendous amount of migration to the suburbs residentially. And we think that that office will follow.
With regard to that, what effect has the pandemic had on investment sales of office properties?
There's been very few trades, I'd say, overall. There's been one big trade this year, White Plains Plaza in downtown White Plains. That was to Argent, who's already in town. But besides that, there hasn't been a lot of office trades. Right now, with rising interest rates, we're generally telling or sellers, I should say, to hold off. We need to get some stability in the debt markets before buyers can get comfortable actually chasing these deals.
So what are you selling in the residential world, or the land deal, as we might say?
The residential world, obviously, the suburbs have been a very big benefactor from the pandemic. We've seen a lot of millennials coming out of the city, settling in places like Westchester, New Jersey, Fairfield County. Westchester obviously has probably the best accessibility to New York City. And for that reason, that's why guys like NRP, RPW are continuing to build in Westchester County. We see Westchester County as still a safe haven for most investors looking to invest in the suburbs.
So why Westchester? I know you're in New Jersey, but why do you like what it seems to have significant involvement in Westchester?
Sure. Obviously, a million-person county with one of the highest, average incomes in the country. We found some great partners. My first introduction to Westchester County was one of the nastiest zoning fights of the decade, of the aughts.
Probably if you went to Nassau County, you'd say that's easy compared.
Probably, yes. And what a lot of cities did is they, sort of around 2010, after the financial crisis, embraced the idea of mixed use and growth. So what was, historically a market that was attractive because of barriers to entry, still very true. You actually saw growth and you see competition, and then people actually sort of wanting, better and better product, and people want to live there. We like to compete in that environment.
So the question is, you're opening up with Jonathan this building in September, okay? And then you're also working on another property. What are the rents compared in Westchester to New York City, to different parts, maybe Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan? That's one question. And the second question is, what is the age of the person renting? Okay? That's an important factor.
Jonathan, you want to?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can speak to it. And just broad terms, and I know you'll know all the granularity, but, I'd say 2 years ago, a great rent, if you could get $350 a foot per month, right? So I know you like to $42 in New York City terms. That was top of the market, and now we see, top of the market is 48 and more.
So
it's been tremendous growth.
Substantial increase.
Yes, the middle is still in that 36 to 42, and then of course it varies depending on where you are, et cetera.
I did a show in Long Island a couple of months ago, and I had the people from the Beechwood property, and they have one property out in Westbury where they're getting close to $70.
Sure.
Okay? They're $20 above the mark.
Right. And you have absolutely zero supply. Right? They're probably the only building.
Right.
And
a very luxury building with luxury amenities near everything.
Right. And it's probably 100 units or something. I mean, you cannot get the supply in Long Island. And the ages, it's across the board, obviously, but we think it's like 35 to 42. Right, is right where.
So wait. So I have a 35-year-old person over here who works in the suburbs.
Yep.
How about living in Westchester?
Well, my wife's a city girl, so she can't drive.
okay.
So until the self-driving car revolution arrives, we're here in the city
Good
at least.
way to hedge the answer, okay? And what about you? Where do you live?
I live in New York City. So I'm a little bit younger than these guys, so I have some time.
Okay, so you live in New York City, so you take the commute to Westchester, or do you spend more time in Manhattan also?
I spend probably most of my time between New Jersey and Stamford, Connecticut.
So when we're talking about Stamford, which is not too far from Westchester, how do you look at that market?
I mean, Stamford residentially has just exploded. You have the whole Harbor Point area where you have a couple thousand units that have come up in the last 5 to 10 years. And the train everything close to the train has done very, very well. We acquired an office building actually right in the middle of COVID, a couple blocks from the train. So I think Stamford residentially has been a great story. And on the more commercial side, everything transit oriented has done well. As you get farther away from the CBD, those assets have struggled. But I think long term, you have an incredible mass of people living now in downtown Stamford, and there's only more coming. So long term, we like Stamford a lot.
We'd like to be in Stamford. We're working on something in Stamford. It's a little too preliminary to talk about, but
What about New Rochelle, which basically was the lead in development, and made it easy for developers to go into?
yeah, no, they have, and they are, and buildings are. I mean, part of what I always remind people when, especially in the market, because you start to get some of the sort of old style pushback, is a lot of this is anticipatory. I mean, only over the last 2 years are you actually seeing deliveries, right? I mean, we had New Rochelle started a process in 2012, 13 to do their form-based code. The first buildings really didn't start construction until 16, 17. So RXR opened the first building maybe 2 years ago now. And now you have maybe 3, 4 other buildings that have opened or opening just in the last 6 months. It's really just starting to happen. They're getting the rents. They're getting that, mid to growing 40s rents. And each of these downtowns, New Rochelle, White Plains, Yonkers, you need 5,000 people there to have a there or more, right? To get that activity that you see on the streets of Stamford.
Which cities in Westchester are the greatest opportunities in the future for development, for new housing, for adaptive reuse? We were talking about you have HSS in your facility. We just mentioned the 2 office buildings that have been vacant for years, for 3 or 4 years, are now being acquired by New York Cornell for ambulatory surgery and so on.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big sort of cities that get a lot of the coverage and have done, frankly, a very good job and have been pro-development, I would say, are New Rochelle, White Plains, and Yonkers. And then
It's interesting. New Rochelle, White Plains, and Yonkers. It's like saying Yonkers in a different manner. Yonkers, maybe 20 years ago, the first development on the water. But even on the water, there are different parts of Yonkers. And people think of downtown Yonkers near the train. That's one section. Then you take Ridge Hill, which is a separate section. So,
yeah, I mean, they've come a long way. And then you have sort of across the county, you have sprinklings on the west side, Irvington, Terrytown. You've seen some developments on the water. On the east side, Harrison's been very active. And as we were talking about before, towns like Mount Vernon and Portchester that I think long term, I love the dynamics there. I mean, they're close to the city. They have a dynamic downtown. Those are areas that we'd love to see more development. But they're tough to get approved and difficult to move forward in. So, yeah.
And by the way, the next frontier right now, New Rochelle has obviously seen a lot of development over the last 2 years. White Plains has a very large construction pipeline. They have at least a couple thousand units. There's a few new buildings going up currently. Lennar's project, the Mitchell, should deliver in the next couple of months. There's another building next to the train station, which is the Alaska State Pension Fund, which just broke ground. So there's a lot more happening in White Plains.
Some old office buildings in White Plains, which can be 30, 40, 50 years of age, being knocked down to make use of new high-rise buildings or other purposes.
Yeah, I can think of 2. I can think of GDC's building and 440 Hamilton, which is the old AT&T building.
What are they
which is-
doing with them?
So the old AT&T building is currently under construction. The GDC building has already been converted. And those are 2 former office buildings.
And they were converted to residential rental?
Yep.
Yep.
What about the for sale market?
Essentially non-existent, I
Yeah.
would say, right? I mean, there's very
In terms of home sales,
home sales.
it's not anything the three of us are the most expert in, but the supply has been, it's the same story, right? There's been no supply and prices have went through the
But
roof.
people want to own a piece of the rock, as they would
Uh-huh.
say. They like to have some property that they would own.
Mhm.
And if you look, before you moved to Brooklyn, I remember when they had the groundbreaking in Williamsburg for L&M's property in Schaefer's Crossing. Nobody was over there. But people who bought
Sure.
did very well, okay? And I'd say, people of your generation are people that buying today.
Yeah, I think what's been very interesting with COVID is pre-COVID, everyone was looking for density. You weren't looking for the backcountry 5-acre, estate with landscaping costs and snow removal. I think with COVID, people started to look for more space. So the homes that weren't selling, that had quite a bit of land, now sell, and everything else came with it. So I have, a lot of friends that have moved out of the city and have bought homes. And they're going to an open house on a Sunday and there's 50 cars lined up. So, and that continues today. Although I do think it's slowing down a little bit. I mean, the market for single family homes has been just
Bonkers.
incredible.
Yeah, like every generation thinks the next is some alien species, right? The millennials were never going to buy. They were never going to have kids. 90% of kids today are born to millennials. So it happened at a different rate. And certainly during COVID, people accelerated that decision.
In the same vein that Andrew's just said that people want larger properties, are you seeing in your development and your developments and what you're working on, builders building larger apartments, okay?
Yes.
Or also providing certain special amenities to the properties, which would be helpful, okay?
Yeah, so
like co-working space, lounges or other things.
Sure. So we've definitely skewed bigger. We were already kind of doing it. We never got into micro units. That always seemed like the first domino that was going to fall if there was a turn. But dens, we love 1-bedroom dens, a work from home space, a place for just that extra space that you move the suburbs for. So we love that.
You're saying that the developments that are taking place in Westchester today seem they're larger because people are working from home and other purposes.
For sure.
Okay, and in addition to having like what you have with the bus, that you'll be able to go to Lifetime Fitness and other places, what about amenities within the facility? Okay, like a separate clubhouse, a gym, other amenities.
All those things, pool, gyms. And that's
Squash court for him?
No, unfortunately,
No,
we
not
haven't
the
done one
squash
yet, but we should.
That's next.
Yeah, I think that's part of to me, the virtuous cycle when you actually let development happen is you get competition. So we actually need to think about our competitive landscape.
Because I think the competitive landscape's important. Certain people are going to say, look, if I'm here, I might as well have the capability if there is a squash course or if there's a racquetball. Tennis is one. The other situation probably which you would gear to when you're 55 and older properties is pickleball, which has become
huge.
Sure.
We haven't done a pickleball court in Westchester yet.
And I also think, there's obviously been so much transit-oriented development, and the project we're doing at 1133 Westchester Avenue is more of a suburban setting where we have existing walking trails, for example. It sits on the Maplemore golf course. So it provides people an opportunity, to be outside and to be amongst nature. And I think now with what we've experienced with COVID, that is, a driver.
We bring up transit-oriented. Let's talk about the retail facilities at these transit-oriented places. What type of retail do you have?
We do not have a retail presence in the developments we're doing yet.
There's a lot of new development, but it's all sort of, as Jonathan said, come online in the last sort of 24 months. So I think we're still waiting for the resurgence of retail, and we're still missing the foot traffic to really have a robust retail, frankly, in any of the major cities. But it's coming. It's coming, and we're seeing...
White Plains was the heavy retail going back many years ago. Where is the heavy retail in the transit-oriented? Yonkers, there's not really heavy retail. I mean, it's smaller amenities, maybe coffee shops, maybe a couple of restaurants. There's nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great, right?
Right,
That'll be
yeah.
awesome.
No,
That's what
that'll
you're going
be
to get.
awesome.
I mean, there's no malls being built, and they're really, I mean, Rye Ridge.
Well,
is
yeah, I
fairly
mean, you
new.
had the
They
you have
really
the Westchester
shouldn't be.
Mall, you had White Plains, you had the Galleria Mall.
White Plains Mall is closed.
White Plains Mall is closed. So
Good
that
riddance.
all needs to be reimagined, and it will be, and it is being reimagined. But it takes time.
You're seeing, I see a Cava everywhere. I see a Dig Inn. I see Sweet Greens. So, the fast casual trend is there. I mean, it's going to be in the food and.
I also think you take like a Harrison, for example. Avalon just opened their new residential project right on the train. And they have, I want to say, between 10 and 15,000 feet of retail that I think is in the process of being leased. But along Main Street there, you have a lot of restaurants that have weathered the pandemic and are now flourishing. They have the outdoor seating. They can house twice as many diners as before. So the people that stayed and have done well will only do better. And now there's an opportunity for some new blood to come in as well. So I think retail long term will do well, but we're in a period of transition.
What about hospitality? You're selling any hotels? I noticed.
No,
that
we
a
don't
couple-
focus on hospitality.
But there have been some sales. in
There have been.
Westchester.
There have been. Some of that traffic is starting to come back, from what I know. But I do want to touch on the more transit-oriented centers. So you think about New Rochelle, Yonkers, White Plains. Those cities in general were actually hit pretty hard during the pandemic. It's come back a lot in the last few months. So to Andrew's point, to Jonathan's point, we're still waiting for that foot traffic to come back for the retail to start to catch on.
What about Armonk? I mean, IBM Country over one time. What about anything happening there?
If I could build it, I would lease it.
Great.
I would love to. I mean, it's still Westchester County. I mean, you still have this very high barrier to entry in terms of the regulatory and approval environment. I mean,
What about Rybrook, Larchmont, Mamaroneck?
They're tough
Yeah.
towns.
They're
in
tough
general.
towns.
We sold a deal in Bronxville, New York last year for Avalon. We actually got Goldman Sachs out to the suburbs, which was great. And that we set a price per unit record, but stuff like that doesn't exist. It took them over 20 years to build that. And we doubt that anyone will get any kind of traction trying to build that again, trying to replace that location next to the train station in downtown Bronxville, which is one of the wealthiest towns in the nation, with some of the best school systems. So it's tough. It's tough.
Where do you think the best opportunities are, all three of you?
If you can build it in Long Island, right, that has a lot of complications, even if you get the approvals in terms of taxes and sort of state regulations that have come into play. I think northern New Jersey is the most dynamic market in terms of capital markets, ability to build, the regulatory environment. I mean, you're still in the greater New York area, but I think it's.
So you feel that's.
They have less home rule. They have COA obligations, so they have to. The towns have to build affordable housing, so they have to approve developments. There's a lot that sort of works in an investor's favor there. Westchester, we're just starting to see sort of what the capital markets want to do there. The rents have been great, and obviously it's Westchester, so
you touched
we love
on-
Westchester,
You touched
obviously.
on a subject that I always bring out: affordable housing.
Yes.
Okay, you have people working in the community. $42 is still expensive per square foot for a person to live. Okay, how especially if they work in the hospital, especially if they work in industries. I mean, Montefiore is the biggest employer up in Westchester. People don't realize the magnitude of the people. What are you doing, or what are the requirements with regard to affordable housing in the two new projects you're working on?
So typically for market rate projects, you're seeing a 10% affordable component, and that can vary based on incentives.
So 10% of the units being ones, twos, threes, or whatever.
You're proportional.
Proportion over there.
Correct. And then you're seeing.
And what would the rent be if Jonathan brought up the $42 a square foot for the market rate?
Yeah.
What would the affordable normally be?
20 to 24, 60 to 80% AMI.
Now, are you protected like in New York City? Once you get it, you can't be thrown out, basically?
I mean, they are perpetually affordable units.
Yes.
Yeah. So then there's some, like if your income grows, like there's some flexibility, but it's versus the time of lease. And we started as an affordable housing developer. It's half of our business still. It's near and dear to my heart. One of the silver linings of the pandemic has been this recognition that, hey, there are these people who we call essential workers now, who we rely on, and we need to take care of them. And the sort of definition of who's essential has greatly expanded, and rightfully so. So it's not just cops and firefighters; it's teachers, deli workers,
It's
municipal employees.
And frankly, very positive is obviously we need more affordable housing. But from a higher level, the feedback we would get from employers is our people have nowhere to live. They can't afford $1 million home. So while it's still not affordable, I think when you compare what's being built in Westchester compared to places like New York City, it gives people an opportunity they didn't have before. And so when we have companies on tours looking at office space, what we see now is they have a map with the office buildings they're going to see, and circled is where are the multifamily developments. So that never happened before because they just didn't exist.
You asked a question, what's Westchester versus New York City? And we never answered the New York City part, which we're now, is back to $70, $80, $90
Yes.
a foot or more.
It's too prohibitive. You really can't afford it. But if I look at all my crystal apples, I'd say that it's definitely shining for Westchester. And it's great to see 3 young guys involved in developing in Westchester. And I'd like to thank Stuart, Jonathan, and Andrew. And I'll see you next week.